is Wendell Kelly, man. This is Leverage Your Life. Hello, guys. This is Leverage Your Life podcast, and I'm with my good friend Ern, and we're going to talk about how to level your life up by leveraging your life. Ern Foster. So listen, Ern, this guy is how I met him. Again, I used to be a firefighter, like all you guys know. I've been a firefighter. I started in 2006. I probably met Ern maybe in my first year or something like that. I met Ern, so I know him for a long time. Highly successful person mentally. I'm not talking about financially. We'll talk about the finance part, but mentally, a highly successful person. I used to look at him, he don't know this, but I used to look at him as the most interesting man in the world. When I first met him, he told me he like climbed one of the mountains. What mountain did you climb?
Kilimanjaro in Tanzania.
That's exactly what I said to somebody. I just didn't want to say the wrong mountain on the camera, man. Yep. So Mount Kilimanjaro.
So for my 30th birthday, I decided to go to Africa. I drove cross country in Kenya and Tanzania, lower Kenya and Tanzania. Mm-hmm. I went on a safari for a week and a half. I climbed Kilimanjaro, which is 19,300 feet. And then we went to the island of Zanzibar. So if you're from DC and you grew up in the 90s, right. You know Zanzibar was a club.
Yeah, right.
Yep, down in Southwest. And I didn't know it was an actual place until I went to Africa. But awesome experience. Some of the most beautiful beaches I've ever been to in the world. Some of the most beautiful scenery. And it was a very humbling experience to see what true poverty and true wealth looks like over there.
Yeah.
I met a guy who did import-export on the plane. We had a little puddle jumper week, and I met some interesting people while I was there, that's for sure.
That's good, man. Yeah, so see what I'm saying? He's an interesting guy, I'm telling you. So when I first seen him, he was telling me all these great things that he did. He was in the real estate, he was into this, he was into that. Then he told me he climbed the mountain. He showed me the pictures of it and some other excursions that he did. I said, I'm really intrigued by this guy, man. I'm really intrigued by this guy. And that was about 16 years ago. And still to this day, man, every time I talk to him, I'm intrigued by this guy, man. So what I'm going to do, his name is Ern Foster, but I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself, where he came from, where he is, and where we're going at. And then we're going to get into some good stuff. So, Ern, tell me about yourself, man.
All right, so I'll give you the elevator pitch. So I was born and raised in the DC metro area. When I came up here, when I met in the hallway, and I told him that I remember going to the auction with my old man, which is down the street from where this office is, and it just brought back a lot of memories. So I'm very ingrained in the DC area. Everybody knows that if you're from here, you're separated by everybody by 2 or 3 people.
Right.
Like I'm sure somebody I know knows him or knows his parents. So it's a very cool area to kind of grow up in and network in, which is a big thing to do with any kind of investments or to promote yourself. Is you need to start networking with the right people, because your network is your net wealth.
Absolutely.
So started in the fire department about 23 years ago. I've been in DC for 18 now. Nice. I started investing in the early 2000s before the market crash, a couple of years before that. So I went through the 08 crash.
Okay.
I got stuck with one property in College Park.
Okay.
I ended up making that a room by room rental to make more profit, because I'm 22 years old at the time. Mm-hmm. Most people have like roommates.
Right, for sure.
So I was like, if I rent the rooms out, they're going to pay for my whole mortgage. So I just started stacking cash. So the top of the market, that house was worth $389. At the bottom of the market, the house across the street sold for $110 at auction.
Oh, wow.
I bought for $253, so I was right in the middle. It took me 5 years after the 08 crash for that to level back out. But the whole time, I knew what my monthly was going to be, and I knew what my income was going to be. So I ended up making money every single month.
Wow.
So just holding on to it. So that's how I started in real estate, was doing that. I've done events companies where I used to do bar crawls. I used to help with live music events.
Oh, really?
I used to do parties for people. And now that I've gotten older, I just don't have the bandwidth, the capacity to deal with the drunk people and the complainers and everything else. Is it a lucrative business? 100%. Mm-hmm. But everything that you do, you have to have the bandwidth and capacity and the energy to deal with it, and it has to make sense financially. So if it takes too much of your energy, is it worth the time and the money for you? Right. So for you and I, we do a lot of different types of investing.
For sure.
And the effort we put into it, what's our return? Is it a quality of life, or is it a financial return?
Absolutely.
And that's what I like, is knowing what kind of return I'm going to get. And if it's not worth my time, energy, or money, then I'm not going to do it.
We're in the same boat, man. I was just having this conversation with someone yesterday, exact same thing. And it was actually a friend of mine, one of my other businesses that I'm doing. And he said, Wendell, man, he said, you probably don't do anything Because I was telling him, I said, I get my groceries delivered now. I said, I get my groceries delivered, man. I said, man, sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. But I said, to me, man, it's more about time. I said, I care more about time. I said, if the value of the time, I could be making more money or even just relaxing, man. And you don't really need me there, then I don't do it. So I just try to outsource it. And he's so big on doing everything himself. I said, man, I said, you would burn out doing it like that. I said.
So let's talk about the grocery thing. So was it 20% increase of whatever the groceries are?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So it takes you.
Is it? Maybe, yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 20% was the last time I looked at this because me and another buddy of mine, Ellie, had this conversation. Mm-hmm. So he lives like a half hour, 45 minutes away from the grocery store. Right. So right there, he's going to lose an hour to an hour and a half coming and going. He's going to spend an hour, give or take, at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. So now he's 2.5 hours of lost time. Right. He could have had it delivered for 20% higher than the groceries, and he could have saved 2.5 hours. So what makes more sense? Spending 20% more and having it delivered, or going and losing 2.5 hours. Now, if you want to get away from your screaming kids and the wife, maybe go out there and doing that is worth it. Yeah, exactly. But your time has a value, and you and I know that as businessmen is absolutely what is my time worth, and is it worth it for me to have somebody else do it and outsource it, or do it myself? Absolutely. And I say that, and I'm covered in sawdust right now because I was building a wood playhouse before I came over here. So I enjoy getting my hands dirty. Right. So that my mental quality, I like building things. That's what woodworking company is one of the things I own. So for me, it's some things are worth it and some things are not. I don't want to sit in the computer and do CRMs all day. I agree. That's not worth it to me. Exactly. Yeah. I'll outsource that for 40% all day long.
Exactly. So it's all about what was worth it, right? So how you allocate the time, how do you spend the time that's allocated, that's fulfilling to you. And I was giving him another. I'm just going to continue with that conversation. Another thing I was giving him, I told him that one of my mentors in the past, they took, well, he's still a mentor, but a few years ago he told me, he said, Wendell, I want you to do an audit on your day, your daily day, and he gave me a price range. Let's just say I'm just keep it simple. My hourly rate was $100 an hour. He said your hourly rate is $100 an hour. I need you to do the audit of how you spend your day for 8 hours for 3 days. He said every 15 minutes, write down what you do. So I wrote down. So I did it 3 days in a row. I wrote down every 15 minutes what I was doing. 15 minutes doing this, 15 minutes there. Even if you was in the bathroom, right in there, you using the bathroom. So I did that for 3 days, 8 hours. Man, I spent a lot of time wasting time, man. Just wasting time, just 15 minutes on the phone, just chatting to Aaron Foster, just whatever it was.
Burning time.
Exactly. So then you look at the math, it was actually a lot higher than $100 an hour. But if you look at the math, let's just keep it at $100 an hour. So every 15 minutes, that's a quarter of my $100. So that's $25 an hour I was losing. So let's say I used probably 4 hours of my day on with 15 minutes, 4 times. Let's say a whole hour. I lost $100 that day. Yep. You understand what I'm saying? Yep. Just talking.
But you look at what people focus on, and it's like TikTok, Facebook, video games. They're not bettering themselves, but maybe they're increasing their quality of life, and that's what they need to distract them from whatever's going on. I understand that. It's if you got something in the back of your head, you just need to just mentally separate yourself from something else. It might be worth it, but if that becomes the habit where you're ended up wasting time instead of utilizing it, then that's where it starts to get dangerous, and you're not going to project yourself or springboard yourself forward. I agree. So you're spot on. I had a conversation yesterday with a buddy of mine who sold his business for multi-million dollars because he was asking me about my laser engraving company. So I've got a small laser. My profit margins are 60 to 70% on my time, energy, money, and materials. Because he was like, "What do you value your time at?" I was like, "Well, we'll just say $60 an hour," and it broke down to where I was at 60 to 70% profit margins. And to me, it's not work. It's relatively easy. It's plug and play. I'm not breaking my back. I'm not standing on my feet 8 hours a day repetitively doing the same thing. I literally set it up, hit a button, it makes it, and then I pull it out when it's done, and I made X amount of dollars. So a buddy of mine made 6 figures, well into the 6 figures, in 3 months doing laser work and woodwork. Really? This year alone. Wow. So he was basically making these things for $40 a pop, and I think his overhead was like $10 a pop. So his profit margins were $30 on each product. They sold thousands and thousands and thousands of these things, and he marketed to a bunch of the Gen X, Gen Z, millennial groups, people like in our era who would have watched it. And this is the only thing out there in the market.
Right.
He made 6 figures, deep into the 6 figures, just doing that alone. And it's just, he spent instead of being 15 minutes on TikTok in the bathroom, whatever it might be, he was spending it marketing to people who thought would buy something like this.
Yeah.
So like your time cost savings is a big deal. Now there's nothing wrong with spending some time enjoying yourself doing something, whether it be a cocktail or TikTok or whatever we were talking about earlier is, but what's going to springboard you forward? Like, don't complain about where you're at now if you're not willing to take those 15 minutes a day or 15 minutes an hour and go do something else. I'm
glad you said that, man. It just made me think about, I literally was thinking about this morning, man. I wanted to mention this in one of my podcasts, and it made me, I'm glad that you mentioned the sacrifice. I think it is important. It is important to have some type of form of entertainment to check out of always focusing on the grind and focusing on the grind. One of my mentors came in here one day and spoke on how you sometimes you need to earn that. You know, even though you want to still do it, but you need to earn. Let's say you put in the effort a little bit, and then you earn a little bit of time for entertainment. You want to earn your entertainment, even though we know we need it, but let's earn it. But what I was thinking about this morning, I wanted to talk about on my podcast was that the sacrifices are important too. You know, a lot of people sometimes we make excuses on why we can't be successful, and I was talking about this recently about the success is already imprinted in our head on how to be successful. Whatever it takes to be successful, we already know how to do it. We may not know exactly what to do, but we know where to find it. We know how to call Aaron Foster. We know how to look in the order book. We know how to do whatever we need to do to get to success. A lot of us make excuses and say, oh, I can't do it because I don't have the time, because of this and because of that. And I'm going to give you some examples of what I thought about this morning. Sometimes we make excuses about our family. We'll say that, for example, even though it's important, family is the number one thing, the most important thing, but we'll make excuses and say, oh, I can't because of my wife. I can't because of my kids. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, the reason why I know this is because I have family members and friends I deal with. Yeah, you can't because of your kids and your family, but then you go spend 2-3 hours later on Netflix at the end of the night. So them 2 or 3 hours that you could have been, you understand? I understand. Yeah, you have these ideal hours of your focus that you want to do, and you can't because you got to pick the kids up from practice, or you can't because your wife got you doing this, or your husband got you doing this, but you still spending 2-3 hours in the evening on Netflix or whatever else you're doing. You understand what I'm saying?
It's just about priorities. Exactly. You're spot on. Like it's like Pavlov's law. So you ring a bell, the dog salivates.
Right.
Same thing. Like if you do something, reward yourself.
Right. Absolutely.
But you need to put the effort in, and you have to do the sucky things in order to reward yourself. Like don't just think that you should get rewards all day long, because that's one of the 7 deadly sins is gonna destroy your life, because you think you're just I'm owed this, and you're not, because you haven't put the work in.
I agree with
that. I like talking to people who have that healthy mentality.
Yeah.
The one who's going to push you forward. So obviously, you know as well as I do, there's certain people when they call, you're going to answer the phone.
Yep.
And other people, you're like, man, I don't have the mental energy for this right now.
You, man. Yeah,
so you need to look inward and say, am I the person who's going to be the time suck for when for you? So if I call you and I'm like, hey man, just want to see how things are going. You're like, what's up, man? I got stuff going on. Oh man, I'm just calling to chat to catch up. No, man, you can't do that. You need to actually have some kind of a quality relationship and quality conversation. And it's hard for a lot of people to have that in-depth conversation with people because they don't want to put themselves out there. But no risk, no reward.
For sure.
There was one article I was reading a while back, and it was talking about time, energy, money, and I think it was Bill Gates. For him to stop,
Bill Gates, man.
For him to stop and pick up a $100 bill would be a waste of his time. The amount of time it would take, because he makes so much money per hour. And I was like, it would be a waste of his time. So if he stopped to pick up, so most of us look at like a penny or a quarter or a dime, and like, it's not worth. Keep on moving.
Right.
And $100 bill, I was like, well, that's a different realm.
We'll pick that up, right? But he's in another level.
Yeah, but you guys look at some people and they're so poor where they go out and look for change in the ground. So a penny or a nickel or a dime, something like that, it's worth their time. So we're in a healthy place now. Obviously, we're from the DC metro area, so we've seen the people with the widths and the haves, and then we have the people with the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
So it's good that we have that hustle, and it's good that we're surrounded by people who project us forward.
Yeah.
You just got to know who to spend your time and energy on.
I got a story about Bill Gates. The same thing I read up on Bill Gates as well. I'm always reading on successful people. I think that's another point. I think that people, if you're trying to be whatever you're trying to be, because success shouldn't always be about money. So whatever it is, you should try to follow people that's already paved the way in being successful, because there's already a blueprint there. So for example, I did read a book about Bill Gates, and that's exactly what it is. My mentor, when he told me about the 15-minute thing, that was the Bill. He told me read this about Bill Gates. You get what I'm saying? So the point is, Bill Gates. One time he went into an office and a guy, he had I guess his right hand man who was interviewing a guy, or a guy that he brought on to do some certain project, and Bill Gates walked in and he shook the guy's hand, and the guy said, Mr. Bill Gates, I've been reading all about you. I love you. You're the greatest guy. And the Bill turned around and just walked out. So Bill Gates' right-hand man said, listen, he don't do the pleasantries. It's a waste of his time. He just really want to just get right to work. Yeah. He said, hey, the guy been like trying so hard to get to meet Bill Gates for years. And blew it. But the guy said, since you don't know, his right-hand man, he said, since you didn't know, we're going to try to set you up because we really need your product. He said it took him about 3 more months to meet up with Bill Gates again. He said Bill Gates walked in, shook his hand, and he just went straight to his presentation.
Right to business.
And then Bill Gates hired him. It was right to business. So he didn't even have time to even say, man, nice. He respected him by shaking his hand. That's all I'm giving you.
There's certain people you deal with. It's like you have some people you have to schmooze around. Like some people you have to fluff their feathers and tell them how great they are. And there's other people like that's just a waste of time. They don't want to hear that.
Exactly.
So it would behoove people to go and look and see what kind of person they are before you try to make a relationship network.
Right. Sure.
There's a whole psychology of money, and there's a book called Psychology of Money.
Right, I heard of that.
I read it last year. I thought it was kind of interesting how people deal with money and how they see money and stuff like that. But success is subjective. So, how do I say this? I look at somebody like Bill Gates and think he's successful.
Right.
But maybe his home life is garbage. Maybe he's got health issues. Maybe maybe he doesn't have success all the way around. So success needs to be an inner dialogue with yourself, and not compare it to your friends. Like I know you're a heck of a hustler,
right? For sure.
And I look at you and I'm like, he's always an entrepreneur through and through. Like he's always got something going on, and you're thoughtful in your process. Do I want to be like you? No. Right. Just because I don't have that bandwidth and capacity. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I think success is for me. Is years ago I got hurt on a fire. I detached all the ligaments in my ankle. I faced retirement.
Really?
Yeah, I faced medical retirement. They misdiagnosed me for 9 months. In the 9 months, I kept doing more and more damage while I was in physical therapy. I chipped bones, tore cartilage. I had to have
your knees?
My ankle.
Okay.
My right ankle. So for a year, I was limping along. I was getting fat. Yeah. My mental was garbage, and I thought I was going to lose my job, and I thought I was going to lose my livelihood. So our retirement at the time was terrible. So we would get a percentage of a percentage. So it would have been like $18,000.
It changed now?
It's changed now.
Oh, nice.
I would have gotten $18,000. Yeah. And for every dollar I made over that, they would take 50 cents off of that. Right, so I was like, what do I do? I'm scared to death. So I started hitting real estate harder. Yeah. And I was like, my goal is to replace my income with real estate, with rental, flips, whatever. So within a year or two, I replaced all of my fire department income in case something happened. And to me, that was success. That's where I was at. And then in my mid-30s, I was like, I have a net worth I want to achieve by the time I'm 35, 40 years old. And I achieved it. And I was like, that's success to me. Now, I've got buddies of mine who are multimillionaires. Guys who, when I say rich, like they rich. Yeah, like I don't even know why they're friends with me. Like they're rich for real. And I look at them and I'm like, they have so much on their plate. Like their quality of life is different than mine. Right. So success for us is going to be obviously different than the average person. But you got to figure out how you can reach the successful point and the time, energy spent to get there, and not wasted doing frivolous stuff that's not going to project you forward. I agree. I think that, and I'm going. Let's get into that real estate investment you were saying. My thoughts on success is from what I've learned. So I'm gonna give you an example. Give you some idea. What I've learned from my therapist. My therapist asked me last month. Every at the end of the year, every year, she asks me what word would I give for the past year and what word I'm going to have for the next year. So one word that you can explain the year of your previous year and one word that you explain for your next year.
So I told her the word that I have for 2022 was attentive, right? The reason why I was attentive, I learned attentiveness is because I realized every facet of your life needs attention, and you need to be actually working on every facet of your life for you to feel whole, right? And for me, I feel like if you're working on every facet of your life to feel whole, then you feel successful. It doesn't have to be the biggest number or the healthiest body, but you constantly working on everything, and the point that you make sure that you're paying attention to every part of it. To me, I feel like that's what success is. I think success lies in the process. When you fall in love with the process as opposed to falling in love with the outcome. When you fall in love with the outcome comes, and now what? Now something next.
What's next?
What's next? You get what I'm saying? So it's always a process. One thing we got to know as people that life is going to always change. So we got to always be working on ourselves. Whatever it is. It don't have to be money. It could be whatever. But it's always going to be something that we got to try to fix. So when you fall in love with that, I think that's what success is. That's
I love it. So I love it, and it makes me think of like when you look inward, like who are you as a person, and who are you surrounding yourself with?
Right.
So we said earlier, like there's certain people when they call you, you answer your phone.
For sure.
It's because they want to give you a better quality of life.
Right. Absolutely.
But there's other people you need to look inward and say, okay, who am I spending my time with, my energy on?
Right.
So are they going to make me a better person? Are they going to project me forward? Are they going to cheerlead for me if I do make it?
Right.
So a lot of people, like once you get successful, they're like, well, why didn't you bring me up with you, or what can I get from you? So,
I hear that, man.
So it's make sure you surround yourself with a healthy atmosphere and create a healthy mindset, because the human psyche is always going to be geared towards negativity. Like you always want to protect yourself, so you're always going to say no. Yeah. It's like the movie Yes Man. Like he has to say yes to everything because mentally he had to change his mindset of everything. He's like, nah, I can't do that. No. But now he's like, I'll go try that. I'll give that a shot. Yeah. And it changed his life's perspective. And I thought it was a very interesting movie, goofy as hell. But I thought it was a good mindset change, a mindset shift movie. Let's talk real estate investing. I've done 75 to 100 deals, give or take, for myself. And then I've helped other people do upwards of probably 1,000 deals. Mm-hmm. So I've done anything from wholesaling, which I didn't even know was a thing until I did it. Somebody was like,
how long you been doing that?
I don't like. Okay. I marketed to a bunch of banks, and a bank was like, "We have this one in, I think it was Suitland actually." Yeah. They went there to the property, and they got scared, and they never went in the building. They're like, "We'll give it to you for, I think it was like $8,000."
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and because they were too scared to enter the property. Yeah. So I was like, all right, cool. So I was like, this doesn't really fit my portfolio. I had a buddy of mine. I was like, hey man, it's a high HOA. Yeah. I'm like, this is what I'm getting it for. Do you want to take it? He's like, yeah, no, I'll just give you a finder's fee. Okay. And then I realized like, oh, this is called wholesaling. And I was like, this is 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's my first foray into wholesaling, and I looked into it more. It's just not my hustle. Right. I don't have the energy or the bandwidth to call people every day and bog them. It's just not my jam. Yeah. Some people are great at this. Great salesmen. They're great closers. Sure. It's just not my jam. Right. So then I looked at. I bought properties from wholesalers. I've actually got one under contract right now. We talked about earlier in Laurel. I've got short-term rentals. I've got long-term rentals. I've done mid-term rentals, which is like traveling nurses and doctors and social workers who are on contract for somewhere for 3 months. Mm-hmm. It's a very lucrative option.
Short-term,
right. Short or mid-term rentals.
Mid-term, right.
I think right now short-term rentals are a dangerous asset to buy into.
I heard of that. Airbnb and stuff.
Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, HomeAway. So here's the reason I think that it's a dangerous asset to own is because it became a very, very, very saturated market during COVID and the last 2 years. Yeah. So it created false data points. So people they weren't flying, they weren't driving far, they weren't really traveling that far from home. So I'll use Deep Creek Lake for an example. So Deep Creek Lake had I think it was like 180% growth in rentals and income coming in from them. Mm-hmm. So there's a 2-year backup on builders. They're not building any more houses right now. Whatever's there is there. So we developed one neighborhood, built a house, sold some land, bought another house, and now that people can travel again, people are leaving. They're not driving 3 hours to go to Deep Creek. They're flying to Utah, New Hampshire, New York, wherever to go skiing and spend their time. So it kind of had a big drop off. There's a big cliff that dropped off. So there's a massive decline in the demand. So how do you fix that? Like, what do you plug in there to replace that? Do mid-term rental. So obviously there's still a high demand and high need for doctors, nurses, social workers, military guys on contract, private contractors, blah, blah, blah. So I had my one property, I think it was $17,000 for a 3-month contract where guys came in and worked on the windmills out west.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was like $17,000 in 3 months. Like, can't beat that.
Net.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, this makes more sense then if I can get somebody in here for 2, 3, 4 months. The flip side of that, if you get somebody in there and the state law is they can squat after 30, 60, 90 days, now you're going through an eviction process. You really got to go back and do your due diligence on these people and make sure they're not just trying to scam you out of these properties.
Yeah.
Short term, long term. I've got multi-units. Right now, I think I was saying earlier, is I restructured all my stuff during COVID to increase my net wealth, increase my monthly income, my cash flow, and my equity position. So I refinanced everything into these low interest rates just to make myself have more access to more money. So now the property in Laurel I'm about to close on, if it goes through bankruptcy court, I'm going to use my HELOCs cash to buy the house. I'm probably going to flip it. I'm not going to make it a rental because the rates are too high right now. There's no profit margins for me. So the properties now you have to scrutinize. Even if you're getting a deal under market value, if you hold on to this property at a high interest rate, if there's no cash flow, you're gambling on the rates coming down. You know that.
Yeah.
So at 3.25%, everything made sense. Absolutely. You could buy anything and it's going to cash flow.
Yeah.
At 7.5%, it's a different animal.
I know. It's really tough.
It is.
So you know what I've been doing recently?
What?
Again, just like what you just mentioned, the first thing you do. I've been doing a lot of room sharing.
Okay.
I'm back on room sharing, man, because I know that's the only way you purchase with this high interest rate that you can guarantee a good profit. So one of my properties that I have now, the last one I got, my mortgage on there, well, not the last one of my last ones. My mortgage on there is like $1,700, and I'm doing room sharing each unit. One unit, so it's only 4 rooms. It's a regular single family home, 4 rooms in the basement, right? Each room, $700 for the smallest one, $750. I'm sorry, $700, $725, $750, and $775 each.
Okay.
Per room.
So it's like $3,000 a month.
Exactly. Then the basement. So then this is the big one. The basement got an access point, so that one is $1,250. So,
dang.
You understand what I'm saying?
Dang. So you're at like $14,500.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, $4,500 a month.
Yeah.
So you're profiting right around
about $3,000.
Yeah, 3 G's.
Yeah, close to $3,000. Absolutely.
Just because you thought outside the box.
Absolutely. So I got multiple properties. I got one other room sharing property. that I did. That was the first home that I did. The first one that I lived in. I moved out the neighborhood. Had about 3 other room sharing. So I asked the people around there, how does this room sharing thing go? And then the owner came. She said, I got all 3 of these properties, and this is like the best bet for you to do that. And she broke it down to me per size, how to number the cabinets, how to divide the house up. And so the reason why I mentioned my first property, because what I did was because I was making such a profit then, on that one I was making about $2,000 profit. That was huge to me. It's still huge.
It's still big.
Yeah, it's still big. So I was making $2,000 a month.
That's $24,000 a year.
It was $1,300, and I was making $3,300 off. It was a 3-bedroom and a basement, so $3,300. So I said, you know what? I'll pay the utilities, right? So I'm still making about $1,500 a month. Which is still great, right?
Fantastic.
However, on this property I got now, utilities, I make them pay the utility. They split each room $50, $50. And then if they go over the price, then they gotta pay. They gotta split it between amongst all 5 of them.
That's smart.
Yeah, man.
So that's one of the obstacles. So in College Park, so I have that's where I started investing with College Park, and it's by the room. Same thing you were doing. So like right now, I know for a fact every room in College Park is going to rent for $600 to $700 per room, depending on the size of the house. So you can calculate out and know exactly. Like I'm not going to get the same thing in College Park as I will get in like Riverdale, Hyattsville, Fort Washington, wherever it might be. So in DC, obviously, it's a higher number than that. So it's highest and best use. But for me, I made a lot of money doing it, and I did great, and I really enjoyed it at the time. That was at the time.
Right.
So it's more management of more people.
It is.
And because I was dealing with mostly college kids, it was college kids. It's like, oh, well, he leaves the window open. And, oh, well, he does this and he does that.
Turnover.
His boyfriend is over. I'm like, you guys are adults. You're supposed to be able to like handle the stuff without involving me. Like, I'm not. I don't live there, so I got away from that just for that reason. Does it make sense in other assets? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, $600 a room on a 4-unit house is $2,400.
Yes.
Like, even if you're buying that house for right around $300,000 or $400,000, you should still be in the green.
Yep. So I agree with you. So my biggest thing is I got a property manager for, so they let them deal with that.
Oh,
let them deal with that. But obviously I got that widespread. Why not pay a property manager? But what I was gonna say, and I agree with you. And it all is all about the best use for each property, right? So it really doesn't matter on however you do it. If you buy it low. If you buy it low and at a good price, however you're going to rent it out to the next person, it gotta make sense for you.
Yep.
Gotta make sense for you.
You know what I really like is lease options or rent to owns.
I love lease options. Yeah.
Because you can agree upon the price of sale of a house. You are acting as the bank.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you have a mortgage on it, say you have a mortgage on it for 3.5%.
Yeah.
You're then leasing it out to them or rent to own for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10%.
Yeah.
So you're making that percentage spread between the 3 to 3.5% to the 7.5%. So you're getting your monthlies covered, and you're making your cash flow on the spread of the two of them. That's a big thing I like right now, especially with.
So are you into that now?
The one in Laurel, I'm looking at doing. I'm about to close on. I'm looking at doing it with that one just because. As a rental, it doesn't really make sense because the profit margins are too low. Mm-hmm. With a high interest rate, I was going to put it in a commercial loan. Actually, we'll go over that in a minute. Yeah. But so I was like, okay, what's the highest and best use of this property? I'll have about a $65,000 to $75,000 profit if I flip it, or I can refi once I fix it up. I can get a loan on it. And then I can do a lease option to somebody, and they have to pay the difference, and I'll act as the bank. Yeah. So I'm looking at that option. It works well in certain areas. Other areas it doesn't. So I don't know Laurel yet.
That's intriguing, man.
So let's talk about. The commercial loan is how I'm going to look at it. So, some banks will do this, some banks won't. I've got a bank I work with where they will. I'll put the property into an LLC. Mm-hmm. Now that it's in the LLC, I get a commercial mortgage on it. Okay. A commercial mortgage is between 7 and 7.5%. So now that mortgage comes off my DTI. So now I can get approved to do this over and over again. Yeah. The LLC carries the debt, but I'm responsible for it. Yeah. But if a bank goes back and tries to get me approved for the next property, then this doesn't show up on my DTI, so it frees up my available cash to buy the next one.
I love that, man.
So commercial is.
You got to talk more about that for me, man.
Man. It's a great tool. So during the COVID era, this is what I did: was I refinanced all the properties, I put them in all the LLCs, I freed up all my debt to income ratio, my DTI, and then the LLCs all different LLCs carry debt because they're each one different LLCs. Sure. And then now I can just, since I have a HELOC, I have the equity, the HELOC and the equity. I just use that as a cash offer. Right. So I do the same thing. I'll buy it with a cash or with equity, and then I'll put it into an LLC, and then it comes off my DTI. I pay my HELOC back, and then on to the next one. Wow. It's the only obstacle now is just finding the deals. Like, does it make sense where I can refinance this out and get the deals, get the money back, and on to the next one? Wow. So I've done that before. One in West Virginia I did about 2 years ago. I used the HELOC. You can use hard money too. Obviously, it's not a one-trick pony. Right. You can use a HELOC or hard money. I used a HELOC to buy a property. It was a wholesale deal. I bought it for $110. I turned around and sold it for $336. I did it's called a 1031 exchange. This is where you defer the taxes on the property by wrapping that money into the next one. So the profit I made off of that, I bought a short-term rental out by Ocean City. I already had the projections of the income from it. It should be $25,000 to $30,000 a year. Wow. So I basically I got almost a free house. I did a cash out refi to pull money out of it. But for the most part, like I got an asset that will show cash flow $25,000 to $30,000 a year. My annual holding on this thing is $16,000. So you want to talk about
real estate investing? For a person that's just getting started. What would you recommend that person to do? Before we say that, I know what it was. The 1031 exchange, that's what really got me, because I literally was just talking about how important that is, to defer the money. So so It's 45 days, right?
Yep. You have 45 days to identify up to 3 properties.
Yeah.
Then you have 180 days to close on that property.
Yeah.
So if you go after a short sale, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
Because you might not be able to close within the 180 days.
Yeah.
But otherwise, your time constraints is the 45 days to find something that's over the value of what you just sold and will cash flow.
Yeah.
So that's the property that I did a 1031 exchange and bought in Ocean City. Could I have made more money buying something else? 100% yes. Yeah. But that was a quality of life purchase, and I was going to make money regardless on the property. So I was like, okay, I'll make a little bit of money. It's basically not a free house, but I got the house from flipping something else. So it's a quality of life purchase versus a property that's going to cash flow and make me, more.
Right.
So quality of life purchase versus a business purchase, I guess, is the way to look at it. But yeah, it's a good tool to have. But if you, after a year of holding a property, you'll pay long-term capital gains instead of short-term capital gains. So just use round numbers. Long-term capital gains is going to be closer to your earned income rate, which is closer to 20% for most people. And short-term capital gains is going to be closer to that 40%. So if you make $100,000, Uncle Sam is taking $40,000 of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, calculate it out, will it make more sense to hold on to this property for a year and a day?
Yeah.
And then you'll pay 20%, or will you make more money selling it and paying the 40%, selling it within a year?
Yeah.
So calculate everything out. And if you don't know how to, sit down with somebody like this fine gentleman right here, WC, and have him explain it to you, because like these are the kind of things, like it could be tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Like when we started the fire department, I think it was like, $30,000, $35,000 is what I was making, and I'm like,
it was 40. I remember. Yeah,
it's 40. Yeah. So like
you need a couple years more than me. So
I'm getting old, man.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that's like you got to look at. Like if you don't know, then ask somebody. Surround yourself with people who have the knowledge and are willing to help you out without expecting something in return.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. That's just like what we said at the beginning. You don't know, but you know where to go.
Yeah.
You understand? So take action. But again, let's start back over. When it comes to new person that's trying to get into real estate investing, where do you think they should start? I know several avenues. Let's just say, all right, give an example just to make it more clear. A person who's a firefighter, right? Average salary probably now about $60,000, $70,000 when they first start.
Yeah, it's good. They're making big money now.
I know exactly. Right, exactly. So about 60, 65, 70,000. They come in. The average person don't have nothing but like $600 in their bank account.
Okay, so let's look at options. Let's talk about strategies. So strategy number one: if you were ever in the military, you can get a VA loan.
Yeah,
a VA loan is 0% down.
0% down.
You can now you can negotiate. You can always do it, but now is more lucrative to negotiate the closing costs. So say I was in the military and I come to you and I want to buy a house, and I have a VA loan. I'm saying 0% down, and I say, hey, look, can you help me with the closing costs? Can I get 3% back towards closing?
Yep.
So 3% of $100,000 is $3,000. Closing is going to be in that 3 to 6% range, depending on what state you're in.
Pretty much.
Yep. So if you give me, I got to come out of pocket at that point for a $100,000 house, $1,500.
Yep.
For a $200,000 house, it would be like $2,500. Yep. So that's number one. Number two, and most people don't know this, is USDA has a 0% down program.
Yeah.
So USDA used to have a bunch of auctions in Maryland, and I bought a lot of properties from the USDA.
USDA is this the rural area?
Yep. So 0% down if you live in a rural area. So there's a map. You can go on the USDA website. It's public knowledge, and you can look and see the areas that are yellow are the highly populated areas. All the areas outside of that, which is there's places in PG County, Montgomery, Howard, Anne Arundel, any place that's not a major metropolitan area, you can actually get a 0% down and then just pay for closing. So one of the properties I flipped, I bought it from a USDA auction, bought it under market value, I put some money into it, I sold it to a girl, I paid all of her closing costs.
Wow.
So basically she had a 0% down, paid for all of her closing costs. The only thing she had to pay for was the movers to move her stuff in there.
Yeah.
Now, here's where she failed. She never made another payment on the property and foreclosed on it within 2 years. And I'm like,
wow.
Like you got a free, and the house was like 8 years old.
Wow, it's pretty new.
Yeah.
Wow.
I redid the floors, I painted everything, put new granite.
Oh wow,
in there.
so
it was new, and then I just upgraded it from builder, to get a little bit more money in the back end. But yeah, that's a 0% for VA, 0% for USDA. All right, so what's the next option? So FHA, you can buy up to a 4-unit property.
Yeah.
So
3.5%.
Yep. So
you talking my language. I'm just letting you go, but this is my language.
No, I love it. I love it, man.
Ahead,
I love it.
Yeah.
So I feed off of this kind of stuff.
Right.
So we'll say PG County has some, DC has some, Baltimore has a bunch. So duplex, triplex, and quads. Mm-hmm. So as long as the other units, the income from other units, you can count that towards your approval to buy the building. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll say that the building, the monthly, just round numbers, the monthly holding is going to be $4,000. Mm-hmm. Each of the other 3 units pay $1,000 a pop. So you are going to be responsible to get approved for that $1,000 a month. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So that's another way to look at it. Now it could be a duplex, like you see them in Hagerstown, Baltimore, like a lot of metropolitan areas in the East Coast, especially, have multi-units. Yeah. So it has to be your primary property for a while, and then once you decide that you want to move and it doesn't fit how you want to live anymore. Mm-hmm. Move out, you can do the same thing again and again and again and again. So that's the next one. If you can't do those things, if you don't want to do those things, start looking at putting 3.5% down, right? That's FHA. FHA is that 3.5 still? 3.5, yeah. So 3.5% down, and everybody in their mind growing up, we're always like, we gotta put 20% down, gotta put 20% down. You don't. 3.5.
You can actually put down, so FHA is 3.5. You can actually put down 3% as conventional. Okay. But you gotta be approved for that. I mean, and if you're making, let's just throw out a number. It changes sometimes. 680 and plus credit score. Okay. Close to $100,000 a year, you get approved for 3% down.
So 3% down.
3% down. Yeah.
So people are paying, like, I talk to recruits and young guys all the time about this kind of stuff, and they're paying your job's your credit, Eastern Automotive, so you're paying 18% on your cars. No, man. And I explained to them, these percentages make a big difference.
They really do.
So, so one of the guys, I'm not going to call him out, but he bought, this is a couple years ago. This is when the Audi A9 or the A8 came out. And
I remember a guy Audi had an A7 on the job.
Baller. He was new job, new me. Y'all can't tell me nothing.
We might be talking about the same guy.
But he lived in a rough neighborhood. And I sat down with him. I was like, bro, let's go over your numbers. Let's look at your finances, because he wanted to learn about real estate. Right. So we sat down, woo. And he was like, yeah, I'm paying, I think it was 15 or 18% on his car note. And I was like, bro, how much are you paying a month? And it was over $1,000 a month what he was paying.
We're talking about the same guy.
I was like, Slim, we need to, I was like, let's look at your finances and break this down. We refinance the car. If you can break even, refinance the car, get a lower interest rate. You can do that through the credit unions in DC. You can go to the banks and get this as long as your credit's halfway decent. The money that you're going to save, why don't you go out and buy a property? And he's like, nah, man, they're not going to mess with my car. I'm from the neighborhood, woo. And then, lo and behold, they stole his rims, busted his windows.
You're talking about the exact same guy. You're talking about the exact same guy. I had the same conversation with him. I know exactly what you're talking about. But good story for him. He wound up, his car was worth more than what it got totaled.
Did it?
It did, yeah.
Okay, that's good
so he wound up getting a check after it, because his car was worth more, but he set himself up in a bad position.
Yeah, man. Sometimes military guys, they're famous for, I got a raise, I joined the military, I got a new girlfriend, a new wife, and a new car, a new truck. So you got to focus on what you're putting money into. So So we talked about FHA, conventional. So the difference is conventional loans can be a little bit different parameters to purchase. And the FHA, the house has to be pristine and clean, up and down, left to right. So it has to be basically turnkey. Yeah, for sure. So let's look at the next option. Is FHA has an option for a fixer-upper, which is called a 203K loan. So a 203K loan, if I go out, I find a property, it needs some work, I find a contractor who knows how to break down all the repairs in the property and itemize everything.
Great thing about FHA, they're going to make sure your contract know what he's doing. They're not going to allow you just to have any Joe Smoke. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
You're right. No, that's a good point to bring up. Is that I can't do the work myself, and I can't go out and hire a day laborer to get the work done. It has to be somebody who's licensed, bonded, insured. that way they can come in, itemize everything, to break it down, and then they get paid out as the job progresses and things are completed.
For sure.
So then when it's done, you're paying a higher percentage of your APR, but you're also getting a house that you want that's renovated to your spec that you want to live in. Now, with appreciation, there's 3 reasons that people invest. It's going to be appreciation, depreciation, and cash flow. Mm-hmm. So appreciation, we're in DC. We remember some of these crack houses were $80,000. They're now worth $700,000.
$1 million. Right, I'm telling you, man.
Dude, I turned down so many properties when I was younger.
I turned down this one for, I'll let you go. But I turned down this multi-family unit, man, for $150. My mom was living in it, and I just turned like 21, man. It was $150, man. Now that thing is on 8th Street, man.
Oh man,
you know how much it's worth a multi-family unit right off, like 1 block from 8th Street.
Oh, it's probably $2 million.
Exactly, man. And for $150, she had it for sale, man. And I was trying to buy my first house.
But we don't know. We don't know.
Exactly, right.
So
wait, I'm sorry.
No. It's a good point you bring up. I'm going to say the same thing. Like there's one off of South Capitol Street in Southwest before they put the stadiums up. And I didn't have the insight into know development, what's coming, and I'm young. And all the guys at the firehouse were like, nah, man, they're going to rob you. They're going to break in your stuff and get the firehouse. Like, don't mess with the guys over there, blah, blah, blah. So like, all right. So I let it go for, I think it was like $175 or $165. Yeah. And now a shell over there is $700,000. When we were growing up, that's where Zanzibar's was. That's where the Ibiza, the shrimp boat was down there. Everything. Yeah. So now they knocked everything down. They bought everything out and they redeveloped the whole area. And the one of the primary developers of the area was a professor at Georgetown, and he said he dropped something like $100 million before they even broke ground.
Oh, really?
Like designing this property.
Really? Okay.
So he also said he's going to make this back tenfold. Yeah. And I look at the projects that he put up, and I'm like, he definitely made this money back 100 times over.
Absolutely.
So if you would have looked at the development reports or the progress reports that the city has, they would tell you that this is going to happen. For sure. Right now, Kingman Park, over by Lincoln Park and RFK Stadium, we grew up watching the Redskins.
I used to live. That was where my first apartment was.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
So they have plans to turn into a park now. Yeah. So they're going to put baseball, softball, basketball, everything, all the courts in there, and they're going to try to develop around it. Like they already knocked down DC General. Yeah. They're going to knock down the jail and move that. So like if you buy over in Kingman Park, Lincoln Park area, it might be a couple years, but the values are going to increase, especially if you can get a deal. So always look at the path of progress and try to stand in the way. Not stand in the way of it.
So what could someone find the path of the project? I'm sorry. What could they find the plans for the city?
So you can actually go to the city planning and ordinance and say, I just want to see what's going to get developed, what the big projects are, and build a relationship with them. Yeah. The big cities are obviously a little bit harder to build the relationships because you're just another Joe Schmo. But just tell them, this is who I am. This is what I'm just trying to learn about the city some more. What are the big projects coming in? Like what's projected? There's another one where the Walmart off of New York Avenue was supposed to be put in, that they canceled that. That's going to be, it's called a city within a city. So I know everything in that area. I think it's like 3,000 doors are going to get put in there. Something crazy. Yeah. Wow. I'll find it later on. I'll send it to you. But everything in that area is going to go up in value because they're creating a new city within a city. Right. Ivy City, when we were kids, like back where Club Love was, it was a little rough back there. It was rough back there. Now they got I think like an Old Navy. They got a Nike store.
What do they call it over there now? It's called, it is still called Ivy City, but it's a different world.
Yeah, like Noma didn't exist when we were kids.
It wasn't even called Noma.
Yeah, there's no such thing as Noma. Exactly. Now it's like all live in Noma. Like north of Mass Ave. Like this ain't New York, bro. Exactly. Come on. So there's you have to look and see what parts of the city are going to get developed and what they plan to do with it. Like I know they're going to eventually try to develop all of Malcolm X and MLK. Yeah. So
it's a need.
There's a need. Yeah. Minnesota Avenue, same thing. Like they're starting to develop all that. So. Will you deal with some of the remnants of the years past? Yes, you will. But will you benefit from that? The growth? Yeah, but it has to be timed right. And you have to know what's coming in, when it's going to get developed, when it's going to be finished. Obviously, with all of the COVID era issues, supply chains were messed up, finding contractors are messed up. So there's other things that come out of ballpark, that left field, where you'd be surprised. Like I didn't know that I couldn't get this. Right. I know on the East Coast we're going to have an issue with roofing materials come springtime, and it's because of the two storms that hit Florida and the coast. a lot of the roof materials are going to go to Florida. So the price for us is going to go up because there's going to be a high demand, supply and demand. So cash flow, appreciation, and depreciation. So the appreciation was the Trinidad property went up in value, a couple $100,000 and somebody made out. Yeah. Cash flow is where you buy a property and the rents coming in outweigh the overhead. Yeah. So it's your gross profit versus your net profit. Mm-hmm. Now, when do you need to readjust those? So every year the government increases taxes. This area is notorious for having high taxes. So if the taxes go up, rent needs to go up because you need to maintain your profit margins. Insurance is going up now. Yeah. So I talked to my insurance lady a month ago, and she's like, insurance is going to go up. Your option is to lower your deductible. If you lower your deductible, then we can lower your monthly expense for insurance. Yeah. She's like, because the cost for materials and labor and everything is going up, so the insurance is going up. So you got to play with the numbers a little bit. Mm-hmm. So if we had a $1,500 deductible and lowered it down to $500, my monthly insurance on the property should go down. So you can increase your profits that way. It's more of a risk if something happens. You might have to come out of pocket an extra G, but that's negligible once you get to a certain point. Yeah. So that's appreciation, property going up, cash flow. And let's talk about depreciation. It's more of a rich man's game. Yeah. Okay. So like you buy something and you want to have the tax write-offs. So if you buy a property under IRS law, you can depreciate it over 27 and a half years. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to pull a calculator out and I'm not there to do math. Yeah. But like we'll say on a $200,000 house divided by 27.5 ends up being like $3,000 or $4,000 a year. Yeah. So you break that down into the monthly, it ends up being just round numbers. You guys, if you're listening to us, you pull out a calculator. You got people that's going to prove me wrong. Like I know I'm wrong with these numbers. Right. But we'll say it's like $300 or $400 a month is your profit. Mm-hmm. You can write that off against your taxes with depreciation only. We can talk about bonus depreciation. Trump put it in place when he was in office, but that's going to get phased out in 2026. Okay. So there was 100% bonus depreciation. You can write off all the stuff in the first 5 years, but that's going to get phased off 20% every year up until 2026. So it's not really a good talking point to have unless you're going to make action within the next 3 years on your taxes. But yeah, so you want to have tax write-offs, then buy real estate. Man, yeah. So appreciation, depreciation, and cash flow. Those are the three things you need to look at. Man, I like that, man. I think you gave us a lot of information. Though, I love it, man. Actual items. I love that, man. I love that. I love that you're very knowledgeable, man. So the biggest thing is, I'm just going back to this first time real estate investor. The biggest thing is to do your research from what I'm taking off and have a game plan from what I'm getting from you. Yep. And have somebody to talk to who knows absolutely has the answers. Have somebody to talk to, and then but then also I think the next thing is that I got from you just now is that there is a market for everyone. Everybody can be a real estate investor. If you don't have no money, we got USDA loans and VA loans. Yep. If you got a little bit of money, then we got the FHA loans. If you want to find a property that you want to make as your own, we got the FHA rehab loan. Yep. And then we got the depreciation if you got a lot of money. And we got the what else we name? Depreciation, cash flow. Cash flow. Cash flow if you want to make a little bit of profit, making some money, and then you got appreciation. So let's do one more. Go ahead. Because I love it. We're filled them up. I'm gonna overflow the cup. So there we go. Let's do it. The last one's gonna be tax liens and tax deeds. I thought you was gonna go to that, but I'm right here. Yeah. So back after 2008, there's a big market crash. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest in our lifetimes. Hopefully for the rest of our lives. So what happens is a lot of people didn't pay the taxes on their properties. They just let it go to default. So who gets paid every single time? The government. The government always gets the money. For sure. So what happens is if I don't pay my taxes, my taxes go to auction. Every jurisdiction does it in the country. I think there's 3,600 counties, give or take, in the country, and every one of them has auctions. It could be once a year. It could be once every 2 years, once every 5 years. It could be in person. It could be online. So we'll say I'll use one off of Livingston Road in PG County as one of the first ones I did. So 99% of them get paid back, whether it be the mortgagee, the bank is paying it back because they have a vested interest, or the homeowner pays it back because they didn't realize they had to pay it.
Yeah.
So the one on Livingston Road that I bought at auction, basically the taxes go into auction. The government auctions it off. You say what you're going to pay for it. And then in PG County, it's a tax lien. Maryland's a tax lien state. Mm-hmm. So you get the lien on the property. It takes the hierarchy of the lien. It takes 2 years in PG County to foreclose, give or take. So I bought it for, I want to say $1,500, the tax lien. Then I paid a lawyer and I paid the taxes for 2 years on the property, and it ended up being about $9,000. Now I turned around and sold that on Craigslist. We were talking about Craigslist earlier.
Right, exactly.
I'm dating myself here. So I sold it on Craigslist within 24 hours for $28,000.
Sheesh.
So it was a vacant lot.
Yeah.
The owner owned the house with a lot and an acre of land next to the house.
Yeah.
So they're separately deeded. The bank paid for the house, but the bank did not pay for the land. So they wanted to go to foreclosure because they didn't see any value in it.
That's
so
a 40%
I bought it.
increase though.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
yep.
Good.
So I bought the lien. I turned around and sold it. Now in PG County, there is a 21% interest is what they pay you a year. So if I buy the lien on the property, I get 21% a year. It breaks down to like 1.75% a month, which with the bank rates, these are actually really good rates compared to a freaking bank.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If they pay it back within a year, so they can pay it back up to the day of foreclosure. Once the judge's hammer goes down, now it's yours. After 4 months, you can hire a lawyer.
Yeah.
So if I hire a lawyer at month 4, now the other person, the homeowner, the landowner, has to pay not only the taxes, but they have to pay the lawyer fees on top of that. So go through the process, and it starts adding up. Like, I don't like going after places where there's a little old lady living there, or like somebody who's in a rough spot. Right. And a lot of times I'll go and tell them, like, there's one property in Capitol Heights where I went and knocked on the door. I was like, hey, man, well, I sent letters first, never heard back with my phone number. Because I didn't want to take the house away from him. So come to find out, it was a guy, his grandma died, he inherited the house, he didn't know he had to pay taxes. Oh, right. Just didn't know, young guy. Yeah. So I was like, hey man, you owe taxes on this property. And you know, the message depending on whose it comes from. Right. Me going to Capitol Heights. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're just gonna leave it there.
Exactly. Yeah,
so I'm there and I'm like, look man, like I know you got the house now, you know, blah blah blah. You guys owe taxes. Like, if you don't pay it, this is what's going to happen. Like, I want you to win. Right. Like, I'm not one of those dudes who's gonna pull the rug out from under you.
Right. I'm glad you like that, man.
Yeah. I just I want to make some money because everybody needs to make, you know, pat their pockets, but like, I'm not trying to destroy your livelihood. Yeah. And in the process, did he learn something? Yeah. Did he learn it the hard way? Yeah. But I gave him the option versus like this dude losing his house and getting evicted. So so Maryland is a tax lien state. You go to places like Pennsylvania is a tax deed state. So
deed state. Okay.
Yeah, a deed state is where it goes to auction and you buy the deed on the property. Yeah. Now that deed might have liens on it. There'd be a contractor lien, mechanic lien, taxes lien, HOA lien, whatever the liens might be. So you get to go do your due diligence and make sure there's no liens on the property. You can run title search. You can go to the county courthouse and just look and see what kind of information there is on there. But the lien state like Maryland, the IRS is the highest. So it wipes out all the other guys. Yeah. So if there's a mechanical lien on the property and I buy it at a tax lien auction, the tax lien auction wipes away the mechanical lien.
Yeah. IRS is the highest on everything.
IRS is the highest on it. Yeah, the government always gets paid, man.
Government gonna always get paid.
Always get paid.
Always get paid.
That's why I'm actually looking at going somewhere where there's less taxes because we'll say, like, well, I'll just say one of my properties. I ran the numbers up the other day. If I pay this house off, with the taxes alone, I'm going to pay an additional $400 a month the rest of my life because taxes are so high. Wow. So, like, you never truly own anything where this house is. Right. So I'm looking at other states where there's little to no taxes. So in case something happens, then I'm taken care of and I have a very small obstacle. Yeah. So I got a podcast. It's called First Responder Financial Freedom. It's mostly first responders, obviously, nurses, firefighters, cops, and it's for people who want to learn how to get out of the rat race. I put a lot of information out there in the Facebook group and on the podcast, just trying to get people thinking. Because a lot of times, like, you don't know what you don't know. So I like to get people thinking. Obviously, with this podcast, I think you can take that away from me. Is I want to help people.
For sure, I love that.
Think.
What about, so you said the Facebook group? What else we got? Just give yourself a shout out, man, where they can find you at.
Look, I'm not selling anything.
Okay.
There's nothing good. Like this is strictly to help other people.
I love that, man. Yeah.
If you want to learn more, obviously you can reach out to me. If you try to send me a friend request on Facebook, he can tell you I post nothing but nonsense.
Exactly.
Like, it's like my intelligence is not on Facebook. That's my clown show.
Exactly.
The groups is where I post stuff in. But there's a lot of groups out there. Like I'm a dime a dozen. I don't have anything to sell anybody.
Right.
So if you guys do want to learn more, like I can probably put you in the right direction.
For sure.
Just become somebody that's an asset, not a liability. Mm-hmm. So when you come to me, like, have your own game plan in place, and I can help you direct you with your game plan.
Yep. All right, guys. That's Aaron Foster, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you, man. Leverage Your Life podcast, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.
All right, guys.
Thank you, man.